I'm Mark Ryan, the Group CEO. It's the third one of these. Normally I have been carrying in the past an iPad. I think I spoke about this last year. By the time I finished doing my chat, I felt like I weighed about 5 kilos. Last year I just walked back and forth on a stage where the moderator to look at was down around my ankles. So this year we seem to have it in the right spot. I've got something to lean on so you can't see my white knuckles. I've got a screen that I can easily view as well. So we've got a lot of slides to go through today, and I think anyone that had read our annual report would have seen that I don't take a minimalist view towards imparting information, particularly around what we do. We work in an extremely new industry, a new segment. We look at what we did only 2 years ago and it didn't exist a year or two before that. This presentation will be a bit like that, but there's some areas that we'll whiz through pretty quickly, and of course any questions you can contact me anytime afterwards, anytime at all really. So we go through today, we're going to walk through the business, a little bit about the mobile landscape, what's happening out there in terms of market, highlights for Snakk over the last year, the performance, commercial performance of the business, and then a little bit of a look at what happened next. So in terms of the business, every year I feel like we try and make this simpler, and it's not always easy to understand. You know, Snakk works with brands so that they can then target very specific audiences. And an audience is a group of users of mobile apps and mobile websites. They will then try and reach them in what we would call defined physical locations. And then from there, when they do understand that audience or those groups of users that they want to connect with to try and advertise and sell their goods to, we will then try and use what is award-winning creative, the actual ads, what they look like and how they work. And you just saw a video with some amazing creative executions there. We will then try and make sure that when we do have those right people in those right locations, that they are seeing something that is very compelling and that ideally they will click on or watch or interact with in some way, so that the advertiser ultimately will get to sell whatever it is that they're selling. So in summary, you know, we are building ad campaigns that will reach the right group of mobile users at the right time and in the right place and with the exact right message. In terms of how Snakk gets paid, it's probably easiest to look at how the media model works, and there's a reasonably straightforward way to show this for you. Historically, and this is an industry that's been around for years and years and years, you'll have a brand. In this case, we've got Coke and Ford sitting up there. They'll work with media agencies, and what a media agency does is we'll take their marketing budgets and we'll then work out how much of that marketing budget will go into television spend, into radio, into newspaper, outdoor billboards, signs on the sides of buses, signs on trains, signs on bus stops, all sorts of things. Media agencies control that spend, and they will take a commission or a percent of that spend to put those ads, or to identify where those ads need to live within these different traditional media channels. So what does Snakk do? Snakk basically develops the mobile component of that. Now, because it's such a new industry, traditional media agencies have really struggled to come to grips with how mobile works. And to put it in context for you, digital advertising, so advertising on desktop websites, the sites that you view on your laptop or on your home PC or even your home tablet, that industry is now over 20 years old. Okay, mobile advertising, with the way that it's operating right now, again, probably 2 to 3 years old in its current guise. So Snakk gets paid by the media agencies, working in conjunction with the brands, waiting for my little animation to appear, to develop the mobile advertising strategy, and that's part of who we're talking to, what we're saying to them, when and where we're saying it to them. We'll then design and build those ads to make sure that those ads are absolutely amazing and we'll get the right results. And then we will target those ads, again, back to those right groups of users. Deliver those across large networks, and I'm talking networks of what can be hundreds of thousands of different types of apps and websites across the entire mobile landscape. And that landscape now is smartphones, tablets, phablets, which for those of you is the phone that sits between a small mobile and a large tablet. iPhone 6 Plus has released one, Samsung have had them for a long time. Smart TV, we're seeing starting to come into play. We're starting to see it happen in retail screens, particularly in in-store environments. We're seeing mobile advertising starting to run through some of those networks. And of course, there's the things that are coming down the line, which is we're seeing TVs with screens and advertising channels opening up through them. And wherever screens are appearing from now on, the reality is that compared to the old world of you had your TV and you watch your TV ads at predefined intervals, that's obviously changed enormously over the last 5 to 10 years. And over the last 2 to 3 years, we're seeing advertising channels from a screen point of view really pop up all over the place, including most recently on our wrist via Apple Watch, and there's more to come in that screen world. Snakk is right in the middle of understanding how to target and deliver ads across those myriads of screens that are out there now and are coming through over the next 2 to 3 years. You know, we talk a lot about technology and innovation. They're probably the two most flogged and well-worn words by technology companies. Look, Snakk is living it, and we know that. The proof of that is the fact that we've been around now for 4 to 5 years in a space, in an industry that, as I keep saying, is so extraordinarily new, seems to reinvent every 2 years. You know, we talk about having smart technologies. What that fundamentally means is that we have a series of different types of platforms, technologies, partnerships, co-licensing arrangements, and a lot of different ways that we do this to provide technologies allow us to think about audiences in terms of behaviours, who they are, what they're into, what their hobbies are, what they may not like, their location, which is obviously their physical world location. We use that to deliver video advertising. We use it to plug into social networks like Facebook, Twitter, and then some of the more exotic or niche networks that are out there. We look at it across multi-screens, so whether it's the screens that we looked at before, we also are doing product sets that mix up between traditional TV screens and the mobile screens that we actually physically take with us. And of course, we're doing it with creative as well. And again, we saw the video with all the different types of executions. They're significantly more complex than just running a banner across the top of the NZ Herald or whatever desktop website we're looking at. Now, of course, when you have all this type of technology innovation and you're refreshing this type of stuff very constantly, you know, you end up working with some pretty interesting brands out there. And Snakk, you know, this is probably a sample of about probably 6 to 8 months of the brands we work with. We could put all the brands that we work with up there, but there's literally hundreds of them. The one thing they all have in common is they have big budgets. Okay, they're global brands or they're premium local brands. And the other thing is that they are rapidly trying to understand how to move what is, for most of them, a very conventional TV advertising budget, and how to shift that budget as quickly as they can, as carefully as they can, into an environment where they're actually talking to the modern consumer. And the modern consumer is not necessarily a young person. Everyone here's got a phone. Most of you have a tablet. More and more people are switching off conventional TV and using streaming TV. We're seeing screens pop up in all these new parts of our world. These brands are all wrestling well and truly with the challenge of trying to talk to consumers in these new ways that didn't exist largely 2 to 3 years ago. Snakk itself is evolving extremely quickly, and you've seen we've been recently launching a series of new divisions, particularly over the last 18 months. We've just recently gone to market with Touch Create, and that is the standalone division that creates those ad units that we saw in the video. We've got Snakk Media, which is the core business, and that is what we would call the part of the company that is responsible for understanding those technologies that allow us to talk to the right audience, the right time, the right place, across the right type of device. And then we have Represent Media, which I think we launched about this time last year. Represent Media works with publishers, so works with companies. We'll do a little update on those guys shortly, to help them understand how they're going to sell their ad space. So we have this other issue out in the market, which is we have companies, particularly some of the larger global publisher entities, that are saying, right, 60%, sometimes 70% of our audience is now arriving to us from mobile phones. We used to be able to sell classified ads in the print version. We used to be able to sell banners and advertising in the desktop version. All of a sudden, well over half of the people that visit our website are doing it on a mobile phone or a tablet. How do we advertise to them? How do we sell our ad space for as much as we possibly can? And they work with Represent Media to understand how that's done. But I just want to give you a little look at an ad campaign we did for the New South Wales Cancer Council last year. The only reason is it's just, I think when you look at a hype reel, like a video of a creative, it's a bunch of ads doing a bunch of different things. Let's get under the bonnet of an ad campaign that we had run, just to explain how that works in our world. So this is what I call bringing it all together. And in very simple terms, in that first slide on the left, We targeted, for example, there's a business out there called ASOS. It's one of the largest female-centric e-commerce or fashion websites in the world. We targeted mobile audience profiles because we realised with New South Wales Cancer Council, their audience skew, the people they were trying to talk to, was very much a female-centric audience. So the ads appeared in fashion and style-related apps and websites. We show ASOS here. And the ad is literally just down the bottom there, very simple execution. Within that little tiny banner was actually playing a piece of video, so it had some motion and tended to catch the eye. Now at that point there, these ads were geo-targeted to run within shopping centres, major metro shopping centres throughout New South Wales. They were also targeted to appear at morning tea, and then afternoon and late afternoon. So we had some time gapping in there as well to make sure we talked to people at the right time as well as the right spot. From there, when we look at point 4, when they click on that banner, an expandable unit would appear and they can basically watch a video. The video was a customised version of the TV ad. Now at that point there was asking them to do a few different things. And from here they could actually take a picture of themselves, and this is the example we're looking at, which is on number 5. They could click a button which was take a photo of yourself. They would do that, they would take a photo, and then from there they would actually customise on number 6 a frame that had their picture, but with the Daffodil Day logo. And then from there they could, on number 7, with a single push of a button, they could post to Twitter, Facebook or Pinterest that picture of themselves and said, I support Daffodil Day. So it was a lovely little, very simple execution that allowed people to reflect their belief, reflect what they liked about this whole, around the Daffodil Day concept, allow them to push it out to their social network and send the message, which is very much how that will work. From there though, we also gave them some other options. And basically, in addition to sharing it with their friends or social networks, they could also click a button to make a phone call straight on their phone or their device straight through to make a donation. They could also view a map, so then we had to plug in to the ad unit or into a different system all the different locations for where people will be taking donations and all the physical store locations, because there's Daffodil Day stores that are set up, or co-stores where they will take donations. So they could click another button and would bring up a map and would say, here's where you are, here's the closest 1 or 2 stores if you want to go there and make an actual donation in person. And then from there they could also click another button that would bring up merchandise and give them a look at, was there a t-shirt, did they want to buy it, did they want to gift it to someone else. So we tried to kind of close the loop in a lot of different ways around that ad unit. Now of course, the reason I go through it in so much detail is because to look at, it just looks like a little banner on a certain type of app. But of course, once people get to use these ads, and the reason that we have them targeted to the right audience, right location, right time, is that there is so much more going on, and that ad produced fantastic results for the New South Wales Cancer Council. The last financial year was a huge year for us, and I think we'll talk about it from a performance point of view. You know, our business, in very simple terms, it was my 3rd year with Snakk, my 2nd year as CEO. The business was growing so fast, and I think we went from, to put it in probably comparative terms, we went from a newborn baby towards a rampaging toddler growing out of their clothes very quickly. What that meant is we just didn't have the right capabilities in the business. You know, I was feeling it at a senior level. I didn't feel like we had people around us that were right for a $3 million business, not for a $6 or $7 million business, and certainly not for where we were going. We needed to invest into talent in all those areas, and the talent investment, it really went from the executive team all the way down to some very new people in the business that were just starting their working lives. We had a number of different roles that came into the business, and if you look at these, they're actually departmental head businesses, because as the business grew, we went from having 2 people that did this, 4 people that did that, another 3 or 4 people that had a couple of different jobs towards areas of specialisation within the business. Specialisation around creative, around finance, around ad operations and trading, but obviously around sales and then some other technology and operational areas. So we started getting people that could actually run those teams efficiently, allow me to have line of sight across the different areas of the business, and allow us to make decisions around how we were going to grow, particularly as we pushed into new markets and new areas. Group ad operations manager, a group technology head, a group commercial, or basically head of sales. We had our guy that come in to run Jamie, to represent media, a new guy in New Zealand, a Singapore regional head, and of course a creative director that came in and really helped drive the creative product that we're talking about. You know, in terms of arrival to the business, there was only one actual brand new arrival, and that was my 4th boy, or 4th child, first boy out of after 3 daughters, so everything got very exciting there. And we had a wedding of the year. Our co-founder, Andrew, became the luckiest guy in Snakk. He married a gorgeous, very smart, very intelligent girl who's also a Brazilian, so he's got his hands full in every single way. And you know, from a team and culture point of view, you know, we really had a focus on that. You know, we came up with Snakk values, and in fact, Natalie's here who did a series of exercises with the team. I think that when you look at values in a business, and I've worked in startups, you know, big global outfits and everything in between. You know, values are something that sort of percolate up from the business around what's important to them, or at an executive level, people decide what they think is important. You know, I know which one works best. We went through a series of exercises, and it was really amazing to see what the team uncovered as what they felt were the appropriate values for the business, particularly a business that was growing so fast and evolving so quickly in what is a very high pressure situation in a fast moving part of the world. You know, vitality, heart, integrity, achievement, continuous improvement. There's some real themes that come out of there. It is around being very good at what we do, as good as what we possibly can be, with a lot of energy and a lot of thrust in the middle of all that to try and get us to the, you know, to the next level over and over again in this business. Look, we did the usual things. I think last year we had some photos. We threw some buckets of ice on each other like the rest of the world. I wasn't as fussed on that one. This year we actually, last year we had the team get involved with Tough Mudder, which was great. And again, we don't make people do this. We sort of mentioned, look, if a couple of people want to do it, you know, go for it. We'll make some sort of charity donation to go along with it. Everyone got stuck in. So much so that all the guys sort of pulled the gear off at the end. I didn't go to it, obviously. I hate those things. This weekend we've got the Blackmores charity run in Sydney, and the team want to go and raise some money for the Starlight Foundation, which is the children's cancer, or make like the equivalent of Make-A-Wish style charity. So I've told them we'll go dollar for dollar on that. So I think there's 10 or 12 people that are doing that run on the weekend. That's another one that I'm dodging, but I might meet them for a beer afterwards. And then we also ran a series of workshops over the last year, and it's not something that I want to do every year. These things are not cheap to do, but I think that particularly at key moments of a business, you seem to go through a series of, like I said, thrust was that word I used before, and there's the old analogy, you know, in terms of air travel, you know, it takes a certain amount of energy to travel at a certain height, then you have to put a lot of energy in to get the next height, and then you go back to using a very similar amount of energy. I felt like Snakk last year was really using a lot of energy as a business to go from a certain level of performance, a certain size and a certain complexity to get to that next level. And it's at those points in time where your culture drops off, you go from having a very tight focused team to a bunch of strangers running around. You know, performance doesn't go well, you have all sorts of issues, you start to lose good people, the people that aren't so good kind of hang on. I've been in companies where that hasn't been managed terribly well in the past, and I've always said that you know, that's not how I would do it in my business. So we had a third-party organisation that ran a series of workshops, but they were fantastic, and they worked around brain, body, belief. It wasn't the standard rah-rah sales guff. I didn't want motivational speakers. I wanted some people that would turn up and help give these people, particularly what is a very young team, and a bunch of people that might be in their second or third job. We don't have many people in our company that are on their fourth way around apart from me. We wanted to give them some lessons on how to cope with working in a fast-paced organisation, just how to cope with their lives in general. I think that's something that gets forgotten a little bit. We're very good at teaching people technical skills. There's lots of things that we can teach people in addition to that. I'd said at the time that I wanted everyone to go through this process with us, and whether they're at Snakk for the next 2 weeks or for the next 2 years, that they felt that they really picked something up out of Snakk other than learning a lot about mobile advertising. That was a fantastic exercise for us to go through, and I don't think we'll do it again this year, but as we start to go through that next sort of explosive growth phase and that next increasing complexity of the company, which I feel is just around the corner, we'll make sure that we keep doing these types of activities to keep that team and culture right where it need to be, which is really at the front of the organisation. We do that, everything else will fall into place within reason. So we had our shareholder survey. It was the second time we did it. We had about 3 times the response to the one we had last year. We asked the same question so we could start to benchmark what we were hearing from our people. The results came in, you know, it was a scale of 1 to 5 basically, which is completely disagree through to completely agree or strongly agree. Look, you know, 88% sort of thought we communicated clearly with shareholders. About 3/4 felt that we clearly defined or spoke about how the business operates and makes dollars. I have a lot of meetings with brokers, fund managers, capital folk, and I feel like that's something we can really never stop doing because it's not a terribly simple business once you get your head right into it. So we really try to make sure that we really get the message out exactly how we go about it, speak in layman's terms as often as we possibly could. About 77% felt that the frequency of communications are about right. So some days it feels like we just turn around and just go from one press release to the other, but that's part of continuous disclosure. But it's also part of the fact that we've got a lot of things to talk about and the business is doing an enormous amount of activity out in market there. So it was nice to see that people didn't think that we were just blasting them with pointless messages. We try not to tell you every time we open an envelope. We asked what were the improvement opportunities for communications. This is really interesting. This is pulling out the top 3 answers, which there were some definite themes emerged. Clarify the road to profitability, clarify how our income streams work. There was a lot of people that said they were happy with the status quo. We'll probably ignore that and work on the first 2, so stand by for us to come through with more, again, layman's term understanding of exactly how those 2 things operate within our business. The number 1 question to table at the AGM, and I'm sure we'll get this one in the Q&A section later, when is the share price going to improve? I have an answer, just pay more for the shares every time you buy one and it'll go up. When will profitability occur? Yes, and capital raising plans as well. So we'll talk about those things a little bit later as well. The excitement factor, as in why do people find the business exciting? This was really great to read. There was a huge amount of agreement from everyone, and you heard Peter Jones say the same thing. I think everyone that's involved with this company understands that mobile is the right technology sector to be in. There's just no 2 ways around it. It's changing the world in every way. The growth opportunities in the space, again, it's an obvious one. Things are just going crazy out there in our area, and we need to make sure we're doing the right thing to make the most of that. The industry potential, again, overall, it's an amazing space to be in. And the shareholder concerns, look, no real surprises there. Share price is an obvious one. The financial performance, another one. Sustainability, I thought was interesting, and I think that shows the sophistication of our shareholders. I think that we've been very open around the fact that we work in such a fast-moving industry. What that means is that things can change very quickly, and a market that you thought that you were on top of suddenly becomes a market that you're not on top of at all. It was good to see that reflected back to us from shareholders. I think it's important that everyone, whether you've got $10 worth of shares or far more than that everyone understands that, this thing is changing every month. And I feel like we've calibrated the business to be across what's going on out there. But the world changes very quickly in our space, and sustainability is definitely a focus for us as managers of the company. And was there anything else? it really varied between please give us some hope. So we're trying to do that in as factual a way as we can. Keep up the good work. And then there was a bunch of people in the middle that I do not fully understand the business. I'm 88 years old, so not much help to you. You might be surprised he could be more help than he realises. Poor shit. So look, we found that there was a real mix of people saying, listen, we're really concerned about where things are at. Other people that were saying, we think you're doing a good job, keep at it. And then just people in the middle that were saying, listen, we don't really get it, but we're kind of here for the ride, and at least you're talking to us a lot. Let's have a look at the mobile landscape, understand what's going on out there. So mobile's driving global ad spend growth, and I think that's probably a statement, an obvious statement. It looks like the forecast for 2015, as of December last year, about $500 billion globally. Desktop growth, which over the last particularly probably 8 to 10 years has really been the strong driver of increase in advertising spend globally, has started to slow down a little bit. Their growth is tapering a little bit. Digital advertising has really been the advertising channel that has sort of taken large chunks out of print and out of more traditional media channels. Of course, as desktop starts to slow down, which is probably in line with the uptake, particularly of smartphones over the last 3 to 4 years, we can see that on a CAGR basis that mobile advertising is growing at just under 40%, globally. A around the world. So we're seeing probably a passing of the baton of the global growth in advertising from desktop over to mobile. And of course, mobile we expect will really continue to push that along over a fairly sustained period. We talk about applications, applications versus mobile websites. And just to explain that, I think most people know what a mobile app is. It's something that you will download. It tends to have one, maybe two purposes. That's the reason that you use it on your phone. And then you'll have a mobile website, and that's basically the mobile version of a website you would normally visit or would have visited on your desktop computer at work or your laptop at home. It's an interesting stat, almost 90% of all mobile traffic actually passes through apps. So in simple terms, 10% of the traffic globally in the mobile environment is looking at a mobile website where you will type in www.nzherald or whatever it is. Sorry, NBR, Campbell Gibson from the NBR. So it's an amazing figure. Look, it's a good thing for Snakk, because Snakk is probably somewhere between 70 and 75% of all its advertising occurs within apps, and has always been like that. It's by far the more complicated part of the mobile world, and it's a decision that back when the company started, and I blame Derek and Andrew for that, that they well and truly pushed into that. It turns out it was the smartest move that could have been made. A lot easier to work within mobile websites than within mobile apps, and I think Snakk has got a very good head start on a lot of our competitors out there that came through dealing with mobile websites and advertising into those, and are now rapidly trying to learn the mobile app game, and I'd much prefer to be going into mobile websites than into mobile apps because of the complexity out there, and we're very lucky in that regard. Southeast Asia is obviously a drum we've been banging for a long time, and this is a great chart to really explain why we're doing that. At the end of the day, there's enormous scope for mobile ad spend growth out there. Like, it's huge. Australia has a population, Australia and New Zealand, just under 30 mil. About half the population are what we would call active mobile social users. So that means that they have a mobile phone, a smartphone, and they'll actively use social networks. The reason we talk about those is because there's obviously people out there that have got a smartphone that don't really use them in terms of they use apps or anything like that. They're not part of what we would call an addressable advertising audience. So about half of the population has got a smartphone, and they're using social networks, which tends to mean that they have got other apps. They're avid consumers of mobile data. They'll visit mobile websites. They're the sort of people that we'll be trying to advertise to. And the mobile market, advertising market, what we call the display market, is just under $600 million. Now, if we look at Southeast Asia, that is completely flipped around. The population through the SEA corridor is about 620 million people. About 30% what we'd call active social mobile users. That number is growing astoundingly quickly. That's been driven by the rise of the $30 or $40 phone. You can go to any store in Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand. You can pick up a fully featured smartphone for under $50. That's something that has absolutely changed everything. That's why iPhone penetration in those markets is absolutely minuscule, because they're just too expensive. So what we're seeing is that the number of people that are using social networks in those regions is going from, I don't know what the number was the year before, so I won't make it up, but that number is growing extremely quickly. Having said that, the mobile ad spend is absolutely tiny. So 623 million people, over 500 million people are spending under $100 million on mobile advertising. In Australia and New Zealand, we have 6 times that on a population of 23, of just under 30 mil. So we can see that that's changing, and the growth rates in Asia are something we're watching extremely closely. And that, I keep saying that our centre of gravity has to shift there. Our centre of gravity will shift there, because that's where the future of the business is. We'll always have a market here. We'll always have a strong play here. But, if I've got a choice between trying to fight it out over 30 million people with everyone else in town, we'll go to that market there, take a slice of a 600 million population market based on what we know and where we've been over the last 4 or 5 years. Guess what? We're all going to Singapore. So in terms of highlights, look, it was a very strong year. We had $3 million months of gross sales, which is amazing. I remember when we first broke $1 million in sales, the place looked like it was going to fall apart with people sleeping at their desks. We did it 3 times this year. It was good. March was unexpected. November, December, obviously peak trading periods. We're coming into the Christmas retail phase. Everything really booms from a cyclical point of view in our industry. March was great, and it was a result of a lot of hard work by the team to get that work out the door. As a result, the revenues in Q3, October, November, December, largest quarter in Snakk's history by an absolute mile. And look, nearly half of the revenues that we generated the year before, all occurred just in that 3-month period. So I think the good thing about that is that that's when you really get to see a business when it's redlining. It's when it's busy like that you get to understand which of your processes aren't going to survive next year, which parts of your business need an overhaul or an upgrade, and where your talent really shines. So those sorts of things are very important to us. In Southeast Asia, Singapore opened in May, and we just had very strong revenue growth from the first half to the second half. Look, firstly because it was coming off a low base, that revenue growth is still continuing extremely strongly through this year, so great signs for us there. Represent Media launched a year ago, and as I explained, that's for us to deal with publishers and help them basically sell the inventory that they have for mobile users. We just keep signing up titles there, and in fact the challenge for us, to be honest, is just trying to work out how we integrate what they can provide us into what we're selling at the moment to really make the most of it. We're talking to the brands, we're talking to the advertisers, we have amazing technology to target the right people. Now how do we bring these into that picture? Some of these brands you'll be familiar with, ZDNet, Cars Guide, TuneIn, they're a mix of global brands, strong Australian, New Zealand brands, and Southeast Asian brands. Picking up CBS Interactive was a big one for us because it was inventory across 12 Asian countries. We picked up some Australian specialist titles and then a bunch of other outfits that some of you will recognise. Very fast growing part of the business, very important part of our kind of width in the market. We developed some technology that went really well. In December, we launched TV Sync, which we called a Southern Hemisphere first because I couldn't find anyone else, no matter how hard I looked, that had done it anywhere, but I didn't want to say it was a global first just in case. That was a very good piece of tech. It was a thing that came to us as a couple of guys that had just developed a bit of a crazy idea on some software that could kind of watch TV and then send through a data feed of what ad was appearing on TV. We had some bright people in the business that said, well, if we understand what's on TV in real time, maybe we can get that to coordinate so we run out mobile ads at the same time but to the right audience. We did a lot of work with Facebook to put that together, and it went really well. We launched it for Peugeot, and since then it's become a very key revenue driver for us. And another example of us probably putting the rest of the market into catch-up mode, which is a great position to be in at any given time. So we've got more things like that planned that we're bringing down the pipe. We had some great recognition for being best for workers, for part of our B Corporation. Second year in a row we got that. Just to clarify that, because I had some people ask me, does that mean we've got too many ping pong tables and free drinks and lunch? No, look, it does not. There's no room for that in the office. But look, essentially, it was actually about like key indications like income parity, the highest paid versus the lowest paid. Our working conditions, our flexibility, our maternity leave policies, what we were doing to make things as good as we could for workers outside of giving them free stuff. And the business scored very highly on that in 2 years in a row. And again, particularly with our Gen Y friends, it's just such a different workplace experience that they need. They're not actually that big on having lots of free stuff thrown at them. They want things like they want a stake in the business. They want to feel like they're part of the company. They want to know there's a strong culture there. They want to know that people are doing things to develop them outside of their work skills. It worked really well for us, and it was great to get that recognition out there. For the second year as well, we ended up on the Deloitte APAC Tech Fast 500. So growth indexes are good. I'll never say no to a growth award, but to get those particularly within a technical field, that's far more difficult. There's a lot of great technology companies out there in our space and in spaces beside us or around us. We're all vying to grow as quickly as we can, and it was good to get on that list second year in a row, particularly because this year we didn't come off as lower base as the year before, in simple terms. And the performance of the company. So we had a 40% year-on-year increase in sales revenue. We jumped up from 7 mil to just under $10 million. I shook Derek upside down as hard as I could, but nothing fell out, so we stayed at 9.9. Our gross margin, I did point out to the market, it was a tale of two halves, to poorly quote Shakespeare. Our gross margin jumped up from 32% in the first half to 51% in the second half. We ended up with 2.5 mil cash balance at the end of the year. And our gross revenues, obviously, it's been a fairly crazy journey from 2012, where the numbers were just, I think, 1.8 mil when I first joined. 3.7, 7, 9.9. So we're tracking well from a growth point of view. I always think this is an interesting chart to look at. You know, we see that there is a definite cycle in this business. If we're in the first 6 months of the year, very different to the second 6 months of the year, makes it quite difficult because you end up having to have a lot of people sitting around the business in the first 6 months of the year that are going to be extremely busy in the second 6 months. We don't work in an area where we can contract these specialists. You know, we're one of a very small number of these companies in the world doing what we do, which means the talent pool is extremely shallow. So we need to make sure that we have the right people in place for when things get busy, and we make sure that when things aren't busy, we have them doing other things, or we're managing our burn accordingly. Our cash usage declined fairly dramatically through the year. A lot of things happened. It wasn't just about the fact that we went through a busier period, because as you would see from our recent Q1 results, you know, we reduced our cash burn, continued to reduce it by $700,000 over a 3-month period year on year for the first quarter of this year. You know, we had $4.2 million loss for the year, just 368 was for non-cash expensing, and we dropped the burn from the first half to the second half by 1.2, and then the next quarter by another 700. So we're tracking well, we feel, in terms of our rate of cash usage. That's part of us driving towards break even, and then of course on there from profitability. And what's next? We have 4 predefined company goals, and I thought I'd just show them to you as we have it, as the executive team and the rest of the company is pushing towards. You know, we're trying to command authority. In other words, we need to be the smartest guys in the room with brands and agencies at the media planning table. And what that means is that at that point in time where they're trying to work out how much money we're going to spend on mobile and how we're going to spend that money, that where they're saying you should spend more and you should spend it like this and you should spend it with us. You know, achieve leadership in market by the world's best mobile technology and with award-winning creative. And you can see what we're doing there. There's been partnerships we've been announcing all year with some of the best technology vendors in the globe. We launched our Touch Create offering. We've been winning awards for that. You saw the samples of what we're doing there. Having leadership in those spots is great, but as I point out to our guys, you're not far from the, well, something that I say I won't say, from the top to the bottom. So we need to make sure that's a continual process, that we always have the best out there as best as we can. The third point is that we gain regional scale, we expand our footprint, you know, both organically and via M&A activity. Organic is what we do day in, day out. M&A activity are the discussions that we're constantly having in market, working out who we could be friends with, who we might be more than friendly with, and who we might need to have a fight with. So there's a lot of that work going on there, you know. And lastly, and probably most importantly, you know, develop an ambitious and high-performing team who just love working for Snakk. You can see some of the work around team and culture. Finding these people are very difficult. Getting them to do the job that we want them to do is even more difficult. And then there's the issue of retention and keeping them with us for as long as possible. Again, an enormous amount of effort going in to make sure that we do that. So there are our 4 broad company or business goals. And then what do we have next? We have our 2015 capital raising and migration to the NXT market. So this is new news. We're expecting to launch this offer within the next month. It's to raise New Zealand $2 million. It's a general offer open to all NZ investors. There's going to be a priority allocation available to Snakk shareholders. And we also intend to migrate to the NXT market in early November 15. Over the last 12 months or more, we've been asked how much money we would be seeking to raise, and we've had various people ask if we'll be raising more than the 6.5 last year, or nearly 3 years ago. I had someone ask me, did we need to raise $15 million or were we going to go broke? You can see from the second half of last financial year and our Q1 results and the way that our cash usage is being managed significantly more strongly now that the company's gone through that growth burst and is now into what I call a steady state this time around. We don't need $6 million or $10 million or $15 million. You know, we need the right amount of money to get us through to what we think is going to be break even and profitability, and that's what we're going out to market asking for. So we'll have some questions about that later, I'm sure. Second last slide. Thanks very much. So where are we at right now? Look, you know, again, in very simple terms, you know, I feel like the building blocks are in place. We're fairly lean and mean. You can see, particularly in the first half of last financial year, a lot of activity around getting the team in place that we knew would take us from being what was really the right size team of processes and talent and technology for probably a $5 million business. We hit 7 of it, and it was a real struggle. We put the team in place to get us through to just under 10. Now we're still growing, and the team is pretty stable. We're not adding a whole lot more people in there at the moment, and that's part of reaching the right point of scale. We feel like we can grow enormously without having to add a lot more cost into the business. Our partnerships and products, again, we've had a good year around putting innovative things in the market and not just putting products out there that are just fancy for fancy's sake. We're putting stuff out there in market that is selling, and that's really important to the business. You know, we're finding new revenues in the market, but without going and hairing off, chasing wild geese. Touch Create is an important part of that. We have some very interesting analytics and dashboards products that are coming down the line. This is part of an ethos that I want us to run to, which is we are putting the right tools, the right view of the activity that an advertiser is doing with us at their fingertips. That's very much the way that the world's going. So we need to be able to make sure that we're a step ahead with that. And there's some products that we have in the hopper right now that, again, we don't think anyone else has at the moment, and we're excited about putting the finishing touches on those. And of course, the Asian expansion. I just don't want that to be some little strange exercise 8 hours north of Sydney and Auckland. You know, when I say that has to be the centre of gravity, that's exactly where this business has to push. You saw the numbers. There's over 500 million people up there. At the moment, a third of them have got a smartphone. Soon it'll be half, then it'll be 60%. All those phones need to be advertised into. We work with advertisers that want to do that. We have the technology to help them do that. So all those pieces are in place. You know, we feel pretty confident about the year ahead, but I don't think we're getting too far ahead of ourselves. We had a board meeting this morning, so it's a great way to start an AGM day. And as I had said to the guys, you know, there is that much going on, but you know, for me personally, there's just a laser focus on hastening gently. There's a million things we can do. We probably need to do 4 of them, and of those 4 things, we need to do 2 of them better than anyone else in the world. I look back on the last 12 months, you know, I think we've given that a bit of a shape, and I feel like there's a lot more to go, and we're well and truly primed for that. So with that being said, look, thank you all for being with us this last year. We look forward to you being with us over the next year and beyond, hopefully. It's going to be an exciting time, and we'll continue to keep you as abreast of everything that we're doing at any point in time. So thank you.